Hebrews. This is the Prophets of Awakening. This is our evening Shabbat class, closing out the Sabbath. It's 30th of September, 2023. Okay, we'll be picking up where I left off this morning, reading out of the Targums. Okay, you can go to our YouTube channel and check out our videos. If you're looking for some the truth of the Holy Scriptures, we have something like between 600 and 700 videos on various topics. If you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those that feel the need to donate to the channel, you can go down to our Cash App at the bottom of the screen. This is a non-Messianic channel, and by that I mean we deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, or the Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament, books of the law that were given to Moses. Shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to our evening Shabbat class. We're going to do our regular or normal, which is a moment of silence, evening prayer, or Psalms, current events. Then we'll do a little need to know information, and we'll go into some Q&A. Then we'll start reading again out of the Targums. Okay. This moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts, or our Redeemer, and all that he's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Okay. Oh Lord, we thank you for your great mercy and your great power and wisdom. And we tarry waiting for your powerful deliverance of your people, Israel. Oh Lord, you have given us insight into the scriptures of our forefathers, and you, oh Lord, have directed us to who you are and your role in the goings on of heaven and earth. Oh Lord, you spoke through your prophet Isaiah and said that you would help Abraham's seed, that you had scattered. And you have completed that promise as of this day. And you said, oh Lord, that you would remove the darkness from around us. Tarry not, oh Lord, for the latter days are here, and we are waiting and watching for you. Peace be unto you. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to read the Psalms right quick. Okay. Okay, I'm going to read Psalms, Psalms 81. God's goodness and Israel's waywardness. This is a psalm of Asaph. Sing aloud unto God, our strength. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. Take a song and bring hither the timbrel and the pleasant harp with the pastry. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed on our solemn feast. For this was a salute for Israel and a law of God for Jacob. This he ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out to the land of Egypt, where I heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden, and his hand were delivered from the pots. Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah. Hear, O my people, and I will testify unto thee, O Israel, if thou wilt hearken unto me. There shall no strange God be in thee, neither shalt thou worship any strange God. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people will not hearken to my voice, and Israel would none of me, wanted none of me. So I gave them up unto their own hearts, lust, and they walked in their own counsel. Oh, that my people had hearkened unto me, and Israel had walked in my ways. I shall soon have subdued their enemies and turned my hand against their adversaries. The haters of the Lord should have submitted themselves unto him, but their time should have endured forever. He should have fed them also with the finest of the wheat, and with honey out of the rock shall I have satisfied them. Okay, so I want to focus on the fact that he says in verse 7, thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret places of thunder, and I proved. It says, and I delivered thee, and I answered thee in the secret places of thunder, and I proved thee at the waters of Mangrove. Hear O my people, and I will testify unto thee, O Israel, if thou wilt hearken unto me. Right? 9. There should no strange God be in thee, neither shalt thou worship any strange God. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. And this is the verse I was going to. But my people would not hearken to my voice, and Israel wanted none of me. So he says right here, my people would not hearken to my voice. Shine a light on that. If we go to Exodus 23, you'll see who it is. It says, Exodus 23, verse 20. This Yahweh is on Mount Sinai. He's talking to Moses. And he tells Moses, behold, I send an angel before thee. So it's an angel to keep thee in the way, to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, obey his voice. Yeah. So Yahweh came down on the mountain with these other angels with him. We see that in Ezekiel chapter 1. They in the cloud with him. Then he says, then he tell Moses, he there for 40 days and 40 nights. Right? So after 40 days and 40 nights, he left. He left his angel in charge. You read it again. Behold, I sent an angel before thee to keep thee in the way and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Because he leaving. Beware of him. Obey his voice. Provoke him not. For he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. Then you go back to the Psalms 81, and he tells you in verse 11, but my people would not hearken unto my voice, and Israel wanted none of me. So people, the entity that they're dealing with is this angel, which is the Lord of hosts, that's over them. Yahweh went back up to heaven. He put this angel over them. That's why it says he inherited Israel, because Most High gave Israel to him, sent him to Egypt to deliver them, and then when they got to the Mount Sinai, he put him in charge of Israel, gave him over for inheritance, and he left, went back up to heaven. That's what they're dealing with. And we saw this morning how Jacob said that his angel, he made a vow to his angel to follow him, be with him wherever he go. If he guide and keep him, protect him from the time he get to Laban's house and then end up back in the land of Canaan where his father was at, then he's gonna him and his descendants gonna follow him and guide it and worship him. And that's what they did. Okay, any comments? Okay, we'll go do some current events. We'll be on there for about an hour, closing out the Sabbath. Okay.
Of Black Excellist, we will be covering the following 4 topics as we hope to give you more context and background around reparations. In Section 1, we will cover the limited number of cities and states who are having serious discussions around reparations. In Section 2, we will cover the creative ways that they are calculating reparations owed to Black Americans. In Section 3, we will show you how to use the California Reparations Calculator with real live data. And in the last section, we will cover how you can potentially qualify for a reparations package. Bear in mind that this is a hypothetical use case for calculating and qualifying for reparations. At the time of this video, there have been only a dozen cities who have even taken up this subject. The idea of atoning for the sins of slavery has been around since 1865. After the Civil War, Union leaders concluded that each Black family should receive 40 acres, and some families were to receive mules left over from the war. President Andrew Johnson, however, reversed the order and returned the land back to former slave owners. Without question, reparation packages for Black Americans should be designed, legalized, and distributed at the federal level. The United States Congress has a moral and legal obligation to provide reparations for the enslavement of Africans and its lasting effects. There is a $14 trillion bill on the table, but many doubt that it will ever see the light of day. But some cities and local municipalities are taking it upon themselves to apologize for slavery. Some cities and local municipalities are being proactive and progressive, making amends for both the local and federal government's role in denying wealth-building opportunities for Black people. And yet, there are other cities who are forming committees and task forces to determine how a reparations program can be funded and implemented. Here are 3 governments that are pioneering paths and making significant progress in providing reparation packages to their Black citizens. We want to spend a little time describing their proposals, since these are likely to become national models that your city or state could adopt. Number 1, the state of California. The state of California is taking some very bold steps. They have formed the first state-appointed task force in the nation to explore how a state could make reparations to African Americans hurt by slavery. And they have even gone as far as to design an online calculator to help determine what a reparation payout would look like. Number 2, the city of Evanston, Illinois. The city of Evanston, Illinois has already approved their reparations program. However, they are less focused on slavery and want to help reverse some of the damage caused by discriminatory housing policies and practices. Their program is believed to be the first of its kind in the US and is a potential national model to help Black Americans build wealth through home ownership. Number 3, the city of San Francisco. San Francisco supervisors have backed the idea of paying reparations to its Black citizens in lump sum payments of $5 million. But it's just a proposal for now with a list of qualifications where you must meet 2 of the 8 criteria to be eligible. But first, let's discuss how reparations are calculated. If your city or state follows the framework of the California Reparations Task Force, you may be provided with an online calculator to help you estimate the amount of reparations that you qualify for. This calculator uses certain criteria to determine the amount that you have lost due to generations and decades of systemic racism. Here are the 5 criteria that California is factoring in. Health harm. This is derived from the difference in life expectancy between Black and white residents. For example, in California, whites live 7.6 years longer than Blacks, and therefore, this loss of time will be compensated for. Mass incarceration and over-policing. This is derived from average salary for a state employee because incarcerated individuals were forced to provide unpaid labor for the state, plus loss of freedom compensation. The time frame corresponds to the national war on drugs. Housing discrimination. This is derived from the homeownership wealth gap from state-facilitated discriminatory redlining, unfair zoning, and prejudicial home lending practices. Devaluation of businesses. This is estimated from missed opportunities and wealth built through Black business establishments and the potential business profits. Unjust property takings. The task force highlighted several instances of eminent domain and unjust taking, but at the time of this video, the task force was not provided enough data to provide a specific calculation. But let's play with the numbers. Let's pretend that you do actually live in California and you live there for a minimum of 6 months of each year, from 1950 to 2020. After entering the years of eligibility, notice that the reparations calculator automatically quantifies the amount of monetary damage that is due to you. So here is the final sum that would be owed to you per the California formula. It's a grand total of $1,381,198. That's nothing to sneeze at. Now let's see how much you would qualify for if you were born in 1970, 1980, and 1990 respectively. Again, we want to remind you that this could be your package if your city or state adopts the reparations proposal that's before California. After watching the rest of this video, pull up the calculator and enter the values for you and your family members using the link in the description box below. But we may be putting the cart before the horse. Do you actually qualify for reparations? It really depends. But let's go through the 10 potential qualification points that we extracted from the reparation plans developed by California, San Francisco, and Evanston. Number 1, you must be a descendant of an enslaved African American. Only those individuals who are the descendants of enslaved African Americans can be eligible for monetary reparations. You will have to prove that you are in the lineage of someone who was enslaved through U.S. chattel slavery before 1865. Senior citizens will be given priority, and recent Black immigrants do not qualify. This is a requirement established by the California's Reparations Task Force for the California Reparations Program. If your city or state adopts their framework, then they will establish a new African American Freedmen Affairs Agency dedicated to not only implementing the reparation program, but also properly carrying out any policies adopted into law. This new agency would also carry the legal responsibility of helping applicants determine their eligibility. The agency would have a genealogy branch to support potential reparations applicants by providing access to expert genealogical research to confirm reparations eligibility. Number 2, you must be a descendant of a free African American living prior to 1900. If you are not the descendant of an enslaved Black American, you can also be eligible for reparations if you can prove that you are the descendant of a free African American who was living in the United States prior to 1900. This is an exception that was adopted by the California Reparation Task Force. Number 3, you must be at least 18 years old. If your city or state adopts the framework established by San Francisco, California, then in order to receive reparations, you must not only be African American, a descendant of an enslaved person, but you must be at least 18 years old. There must exist public documents where you have identified as either Black or African American for at least 10 years. Number 4, you must prove residency for at least 13 years. If your city or state adopts the reparations framework adopted by San Francisco, then you would have to be born in the city or state or have migrated there between 1940 and 1996. If this holds true, then you will have to show proof of at least 13 years of residency. Number 5, you must prove economic or health inequities. If your city or state adopts the reparations framework proposed by San Francisco, you could receive reparations if you can prove that your race is a factor in you not earning the average income or wealth threshold for your city or state. Also, if you can demonstrate that you lack access or proximity to quality educational opportunities, you may become eligible. And lastly, your city or state may target reparations for Black citizens who lived in specific zip codes, regions, or communities that have historically experienced particularly intense discrimination or violence. Number 6, you were incarcerated by the failed war on drugs. If you were arrested and incarcerated during the 1980s as part of the Reagan administration's failed war on drugs, then you are eligible for reparations. And if you are a direct descendant of someone who was incarcerated, you would be eligible for reparations if your city or state is using San Francisco's reparation program as a framework. 7, your family was displaced or land seized by the government. If your city or state were to follow the San Francisco framework, thousands of Black families would receive reparations if they lost their homes, land, farms, and businesses due to the local and federal government claiming their property under the power of eminent domain. You would also qualify if your family suffered from environmental injustices after corporations moved their refineries, landfills, and power plants in close proximity of Black neighborhoods, bringing in contaminated water, toxic chemicals, and air pollution. San Francisco also recognizes the structural racism where the local municipalities deliberately built interstates and highways that ran through the middle of thriving Black enclaves and business centers. The ripple effects damaged every aspect of Black lives: cultural, economic, environmental, political, and educational for generations. Your city or state, like San Francisco, may seek to compensate any family that suffered damage to their pathway to build generational wealth, secure stable housing, and live freely and healthy. Number 8, you experienced lending discrimination or was a victim of redlining. If your city or state were to follow the San Francisco framework, you would be entitled to reparations if you personally experienced lending discrimination between the years 1937 and 1968, or if you were a resident of a formerly redlined community between 1968 and 2008. Your city would officially identify the formerly redlined community to help you determine your eligibility. And for those who do not know and others who may need a refresher, redlining is a term for racial discrimination of any kind in housing. But specifically, redlining involves government maps that outlined areas where Black residents lived and were therefore deemed risky investments. These maps were also used by real estate agents, banks, and financial institutions to steer potential Black home buyers into these neighborhoods and deny loans for Black buyers who were looking to buy homes outside of these areas in predominantly white neighborhoods. Number 9, prove residency in your city between 1919 and 1969, or be a direct descendant. If your city or state adopts the framework established by Evanston, Illinois, it is possible that you would qualify for some form of reparations due to the harmful housing discrimination practices that African Americans suffered through. Adult residents who have lived in Evanston before 1969, when housing discrimination in various forms was at its height, are eligible for Evanston's reparation program. Evanston will pay out $25,000 to African Americans and their descendants who were affected by housing discrimination policies, prejudicial city zoning ordinances, and unfair redlining. Number 10, any Black person affected by systemic racism. Other cities such as Boston are considering extending reparations to all of their Black citizens. There is a growing argument that the legacy of the slave trade has affected the lives of every Black person in America, no matter when their ancestors arrived. Some reparation committees are giving consideration to a point system, where descendants of enslaved ancestors are given more points in the formula to determine eligibility, or they would be given a bigger reparation package than a first or second generation Black immigrant.
Okay, any comments on that? If you want to check that out, it's reparation calculator. Are you eligible? How much will you get? You want to check it out. Any comment?
Shalom. That's a lot to digest, I'll tell you. So
Okay.
by them using the word Black in the Black's Law Dictionary, in some of, I don't know the article or the Constitution, being labeled as Black, saying that you're not a citizen of the United States. So that's something tricky that one would have to look at when they ask for reparation.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Existed in many different forms throughout history. The reduction of another human being to the status of property used for labor at the command of another has been a feature of almost every society on earth until the 19th century or so. No system of slavery has attracted more attention than the transatlantic slave trade, established by Europeans to provide slave labor for their American colonies. Around 12 million souls were taken from Africa and forced onto perilous journeys across the Atlantic, where they and their descendants were condemned to a life of servitude. However, retellings of the horrors of Atlantic slavery too often turn into stories of how Europeans alone determined the course of that history. In reality, Africans were not just passive victims. Millions of them were slaves, but many others profited from, produced, and protected that slave trade. In this video, we look at the untold story of the African slave trade. Stick around until the end to learn how some of Africa's greatest kingdoms were built on the profits of slavery, and how Africans fought tooth and nail to protect it from the abolitionist European empires. Slavery has existed in Africa for as long as recorded history. Ancient Egypt had slaves toiling away in its fields and on its monuments. Ancient Carthage trafficked in slaves across the Mediterranean, and the Ethiopian kings of Aksum wrote proudly of the slaves they took in war. Slaves were also exported from Africa for centuries before Europeans arrived. The trans-Saharan slave trade lasted for over 1,000 years and dragged about 10 million people across the desert to be slaves in the Islamic world. The Indian Ocean also had a similarly long-lasting ocean-going slave trade, with about 5 million ending up in slave ships, bound and branded for use in foreign lands. These slaves ended up as laborers, domestic servants, soldiers, or more. Male slaves in the Islamic world were typically castrated, which meant that new slaves had to be regularly imported to maintain the population. For this video, we'll focus on Western Africa, where the Atlantic slave trade was centered. West Africa was removed from the Indian Ocean trade and mostly secure from Islamic slave raids. But slavery was still a feature of life there long before the Atlantic slave trade began. A succession of powerful empires occupied the region, which all rested on complex slave systems. The Ghanaian Empire, from the 3rd to the 13th century, began a tradition of powerful West African imperial states, and built much of its wealth through trans-Saharan trading of slaves or goods acquired through slave labor. The salt, copper, and gold that made the Mali Empire and Mansa Musa.
Yeah, so if you look at this, if you look at what's being said, I was listening to the conversation last night and a little bit this morning, and right here, what you're looking at, this information right here, this how the Israelite ended up in all parts of it. He said he's going to scatter them to the four corners of the earth. This how they done it. It tells you in Deuteronomy that they're going to be bond men and bond women. So that's slave. There's another word, synonym for slave. So this is how they got distributed to all different parts of the earth, in all kingdoms. And not only that, at the bottom of the food chain, like he said, we'll be the tail, and they'll be the head. So you come in and through what they're doing right here with all these different being shipped to all these different places on slave ships, you get there at the bottom of the food chain. And that's how we got scattered out all over the place, coming from Africa. If you notice when they was talking about what nobody never really talks about, and that's the Indian Ocean, the Indian slave trade, Indian Ocean slave trade, which is tied to, the Indian Ocean. And so notice he said they was transported across the desert. The Arabs was transporting them across the desert. What desert? The Sahara Desert. And the Sahara Desert is a blockage, is a border or blockage for West Africa. So that's all part of the prophecy. You can't separate the two. When you look at the time that he said in Hosea that in chapter 6 that 2 days he's gonna cast us off for 2 days. 1 day with the Lord is 1,000 years. And so that's 2,000 years. Then he says in the 3rd day he's gonna raise us back up. That's where we at. After 3,000 years, we in the 3rd day now, and he raising us back up. We're awakening until we are bringing our scriptures back, bringing our countenance back, our courage and all that. We see it. It's right there in the scriptures. So yeah, you can't disconnect what the Arabs did from what the Europeans did. They all the same. It's all tied to it's the time period. It's all tied together. And by the Arabs being involved and by the Europeans being involved, we're being scattered. to different parts of the earth. And through that, we were scattered to all different parts of the earth. I'll have a little more display. Move on to something else.
Fabulously wealthy were all extracted with slave labor. Domestic slavery was also common, and Mali was known to import female slaves from the Mediterranean to act as domestic servants in the households of the elites. Most of the slaves were acquired through conquest of neighboring kingdoms, or tribal groups who were too weak to defend themselves from the organized imperial militaries. Successor empires like the Songhay, Jollof, and Kabu inherited the social and economic structures of slavery and continued to acquire slaves as they scrambled to establish their own territories. Elites in these empires used slaves as a status symbol. An ownership of slaves came to represent someone's wealth and power. Slavery took many different forms in West Africa. Some worked the land or the mines. Others served as soldiers or even political advisors. In some places, slaves were permitted to own land that they cultivated in their free time and might earn enough from this land to buy their own freedom. In other places, the lot of slaves was more miserable. In Benin, for example, slaves were regularly sacrificed to mark important occasions like the anniversary of a king's death. All of this is to say that when Europeans arrived, they did not find an empty land of scattered peoples ripe for enslavement, but complex societies and slave-holding empires whose roots were even older than those of the Europeans themselves. In public celebration involving military parades, political debates, and human sacrifice of slaves to appease the spirits and protect the kingdom for another year. Hundreds of slaves were killed, usually with decapitation, and in some years, as many as 4,000 people were sacrificed on a single day. A similar display of mass sacrifice was required for the funeral of a king, and might occur on a smaller scale for any number of other rituals or social events. Dahomey remained committed to slavery even as the European powers began their crusade against it. In 1818, King Gezo was forced to make concessions to the British, including the abolition of slave sacrifices, and by the 1840s, Gezo was being pressured to end the slave trade altogether, but he refused. The slave trade is the ruling principle of my people, Gezo told the British. It is the source and glory of their wealth. The mother lulls the child to sleep with notes of triumph over an enemy reduced to slavery. When the British managed to force a treaty on Gezo that ended slave trading from Dahomey's ports, it was a source of bitter resentment. The Dahomeans subverted it by selling slaves overland to be sold through ports not bound by the treaty's terms. Eventually, the resentment caused a total breakdown of relations, and Dahomey abandoned the treaty entirely by the late 1850s. They pivoted towards an alliance with France, who were less zealous in their anti-slavery attitudes, but the collapse of the slave trade would soon bring down the kingdom. As the kingdom's main source of wealth failed, it was forced into desperate raiding and conquest that antagonized the French. After attack.
Yeah, so when we start talking about Dahomey, I don't know if anybody remembers, but they just made that movie. The movie they just made came out, and it publicized all that. Okay, can't remember the name of it, but yeah. Anybody have any comments, questions? Yeah, so here goes some need to know information. Then we'll go into our Q&A. This is like I said, we said the Most High prophesied through the prophets how that what was going to happen with the Israelites, how he's going to be sent into slavery in Deuteronomy 28, and then he also tells you that in Jeremiah 30 that he's going to turn the captivity. So the same way he had his hand stretched out against us to scatter us, now he got his hand stretched out to bring us back. And so when you understand it, you got to look around at the events that's taking place and understand that he's behind it, right? This one of them right here.
Listen, Africa has joined the reparations chat, okay? We're here and it's our time. When you thought that Black Americans and the Caribbeans were asking for reparations wasn't enough, or like was enough, Africans are here and we're saying we also want our share, because guess what? Colonialism happened to us and slave trade happened to us. Now you can bring in the politics of Africans or selling the people you could have refused to buy, right? As a moral obligation, you could have refused, but you are a willing participant. And while we take responsibility and accountability for what some of the few people that did what they did, we are also not going to run away from the fact that Africans were shipped from the continent to go and be slaves. Our resources were shipped from the continent and continue to this very day to be shipped out of the continent as we are twisted or blindsided in deals to benefit and grow Western economies. This agenda is being pushed by the President of Ghana at the United Nations General Assembly. He says, if you paid slave owners when you abolished trade, then you understood the economic value of slaves. So when we ask for payments, we're not foolish. We understand that what our people offered was economic value. And they could have offered that economic value back at home, but instead they offered it to you. So, brother, pay up.
It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the centuries of colonial exploitation. Maybe we should also admit that it cannot be easy to build confident and prosperous societies from nations that for centuries have their natural resources looted and their peoples traded as commodities. For centuries, the world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of the slave trade. And gradually, this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted, the current generations are not the ones that engaged in the slave trade, but that grant in human enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade.
Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another.
So like I said, we saw this morning another African president saying the same thing. We see what's going on in Niger, what's going on in Mali, Bonafista, whatever it is, and all these other. It's that time. And notice he said centuries. So what century? The 3,000 years I just mentioned. A century is 1,000 years. It's 3,000 years in Amos. Hosea, yeah, chapter 6 in Hosea. He said, 2 days he's gonna cast us out. And the third day, he's gonna come and get us, bring us back. That's 3 centuries. Okay. So with that being said, nobody have no comments on that. We're gonna go into our Q&A. Anybody have any questions or comments from this morning or earlier, or either from last week? Anybody have anything they want to talk about or share? Okay. Okay, one more video. We're going to our reading out of the Targums.
A state of emergency in New York, a deluge of 2 months worth of rain falling on the city in 24 hours, causing severe flooding in some areas. Samara Theodore is here with the latest as things dry out a bit. Samara, good morning.
Good morning. So yesterday's powerful and moisture-laden storm capped off New York City's second wettest September on the record, as torrential rainfall left those in transit in dangerous and simply impossible situations.
This morning, New Yorkers drying out after a dangerous deluge left many areas underwater from record-breaking rain. Over the last 24 hours, unrelenting rain turning roads into rivers, cars stranded as people flee for dry ground, and millions of New Yorkers urged to shelter in place. In New Jersey, a state of emergency floodwaters swamping roads, making travel dangerous and nearly impossible. In Fairfield, watch as a firefighter hoists a driver over his shoulders, rescuing him from the stranded car in the middle of a flooded street. One of at least 18 rescues throughout the region. In New York, states of emergency in New York City and the Hudson Valley. One of the Big Apple's wettest days on record, with more than half a foot of rain falling. The NYPD sharing video of this sea lion that escaped from its enclosure due to the flooding, but returned without leaving the zoo. The torrential downpour sending water cascading down stairs at subway stations. The system coming to a complete halt as rain poured through openings and cracks. This video showing water shooting out of the wall at the 7th Avenue subway station in Manhattan.
Get off right here.
Riders on the city bus in a panic as water surges inside. Drivers abandoning their cars on the FDR highway on Manhattan's east side. At the city's LaGuardia Airport, one terminal shut down as waters rise. More than 1,000 flights canceled or delayed. Hard-hit Brooklyn receiving nearly a month's worth of rain in just a few hours. Vehicles plowing through flooded roads and floating trash. A whirlpool forming over a storm drain. Brooklyn's 4th Avenue looking like a lake. SUVs creating waves as drivers test their luck despite the dangerous conditions.
And you know what's wild about all this? As we see the ramifications of climate change persist, events like this will be more frequent. So let's see what we ended with here. So at JFK Airport, they saw 8.6 inches of rain. That was their wettest day on record since they began keeping that in 1948. And we saw rain totals high in even Norwalk, Connecticut, just over 5.5 inches there. So what happens next with this system? We're almost done through the thick of it, but we could still see one last heavy wave of rain over Long Island this morning by about 3 p.m. this afternoon, the last of it moving through New England, and then we're drying out. As far as totals go, generally speaking, about 1 inch, but we could see 1 to 2 inches on Long Island near Brookhaven. That's a look at the forecast. Sinead, back to you. Oh my God.
Okay. Anybody have any comments on that? Okay. So you think they're just an accident or the hand of the Lord or what? Okay.
Shalom. Yeah, I think it's the hand of the Lord of hosts, because these things been prophesied. But the government is not talking about how they're trying to help these people. When they talk about all the tsunamis, the floods, all these things, they just talk about that, but not the relief for the people that may be displaced or died or whatever. They don't broadcast that part of it. Like they don't care what happens to those people. So,
okay. Is there something? Okay, yeah. Anybody else? Yeah, so like I said, I'll pick up out of these Targums where I left off this morning. I'll read I think we got enough time for one chapter. I'm in chapter 34. It's started out, Dana, the daughter of Leah and Jacob, was curious about the local girls in the foreign band. And they had settled in an inn and went out to walk among them. And she was seen by Shechem, son of Hammer, a Hivite, chief of the region. He subdued her and then forced himself upon her. He became so attached to her that he declared his love for this daughter of Jacob. And Shechem then spoke of his father Hammer, saying, I want the girl as a wife. Arrange it for me. And Jacob learned that his daughter Dinah had been defiled but he remained silent until his sons returned from the field where they had been tending livestock. So right here, this is an example of using tact, right? So it says Jacob learned that his daughter Dinah had been defiled, but he remained silent until his sons returned from the field where they had been tending to livestock. So it's back to like I was talking about the other day, when you got a mate, catch him in a motel. You know, why you getting all bent out of shape with the person that they with in the motel? They had to get to the motel too. So, you know what I'm saying? So the same thing right here. How you gonna run up on somebody like a nut bucket by yourself? There's a whole race of people. So this tells you that just common sense. That Jacob held his peace until the 12 sons came. Then he went and dealt with it. So anyway, it says before their return, Shechem's father Hamor had Jacob to speak with him. And when Jacob's sons returned from the field and learned of what had happened, they were shocked and seized with anger. Shechem had committed not only a physical outrage against the daughter of Jacob, but as well a spiritual outrage against Israel, such as the act could not be tolerated. So let's look at that. So what is it he's talking about? He said not only did he do a physical act, but it says, right, it says a physical outrage against the daughters of Jacob, but as well a spiritual outrage against Israel. Such act could not be tolerated. So what are you talking about? Exactly what we're talking about now. This right here, back in the day, like the law, statutes, and judgments was the things we see going on now couldn't be tolerated. And now that the Most High waking us up, the men and the women, it's things that you could have got away with or would have passed just 5 years ago. That they're not passing now because he waking Israelites up, and they returning back to their culture. And it's things like I said that people got away with. You know, you get away with it with a nut bucket, but a man that's in the Most High Word and His Spirit on him, you ain't gonna pass. Like the brother was saying earlier, about dealing with a man in the house. You can't, the same things you can't do, same ways you can't act. I mean, if you pray for a righteous man, but like I said, if you pray for a man or a nut bucket, it's things you can get away with. But with a righteous man that's in this Most High Word and rightly dividing His word and in His book, it's things that ain't gonna fly. So anyway, it says, although his words would appear to be addressed to Jacob, Haman tried to reason with the sons, knowing he could not persuade the father to give a legal appearance to an act of rape and violence. My son Shechem is deeply in love with your daughter, and he said to Jacob, if you would permit this, let him marry her. Intermarry with us. You can give us your daughters, and we will give you ours. You will be able to live with us, and the land will be open before you. Settle down here with us and do business here, and the land will become your property, and we will become as one people with you. So when I was reading this, right, the first thing dawned on me, I was like, okay, so this is exactly what happened to us over here. They came and got us. We was minding our own business on the West Coast, living out our punishment. We had been cast out of the land, and we was on the West Coast. They came and got us, raped all the women on the boats, raping the men too, little boys, and all this. And then now they want to come and have their hand out to marry the Israelite women after they done raped them and beat the hell out of them all for 2,000, 3,000 years. Ain't no different than this. So that's where the outrage coming in, because you actually giving your hand to them, but look what they done. Look at the atrocities that they it's not like they just showed up righteous and now they asking for your hand in marriage. Look at all the shit they did before they reached their hand out, before we got to this. So anyway, it says, my son Shechem is deeply in love. So yeah, so what? Who gives a damn? He says, my son Shechem is deeply in love with your daughter, and he said to Jacob, if you would permit, same thing now. If you would permit this, let him marry her, intermarry with us, and you can give us your daughters, and we will give you ours. You will be able to live with us, and the land will be open before you. Settle down here with us, do business here, and the land will become your property, and we will become as one people. So like I was saying before, yeah, they could do that and everything will be cool, but we got there's repercussions if we do it. There's repercussions. Okay? Just like I said, we got the Torah. We got the laws, the statutes, and the judgments. And that's on us that we have to deal with. It's a cakewalk for them. But we got repercussions. So Shechem then came forward and spoke to Jacob and to all the brothers. It says, I will do anything to regain your favor. I will give you whatever you ask. Set the bridal payment as high as you like. I will give whatever you demand me. Just let me have a girl as my wife. Okay. So one of the things I want to do before I continue is I was reading what that was last night in Ezekiel chapter 38 about Gog and Magog is coming back after he regather us and we dwelling safely in cities, waiting to go back to our homeland. They're gonna come up against us. But then it says that in verse 12 of 38, Ezekiel 38, that it says D-Dan. And when you go do the research, those are the sons of Abraham's second wife, Keturah. So those are Hebrews too. So when these people come back, Most High already got it set up where they're gonna. It says young lions they're gonna rise up, and so you might stand a chance with a old lion, but a young lion you too. So look at this right here. It says in 34:8, Jacob used tack right here, old lion. So Jacob used tack and waiting for the 12 boys to come, young lions. Ain't no reasoning with them. So he says 34:8. Although his words would appear to be addressed to Jacob, Haman tried to reason with the sons. It's the young lions. See that? And knowing he would not persuade the father to give a legal appearance in the act of rape and violence. My son Shechem is deep in love with us, so we see he trying to, coerce the older man. The young lions already see what you've done. And they're ready to deal with you. That's what Ezekiel 38 telling you. They're going to come back again thinking they can do the same thing they did before. But this time, Most High got young lions in place. Wasn't no young lions when they came on the West Coast. Most High had already dealt with them and subdued them. But now you see these young lions rising up already through these coups and stuff you see happening in West Africa. That's the reason why it's happening. Most High putting that spirit back on these males, young males. Especially the young males, okay? So it says Jacob's sons rather than Jacob replied to Shechem and to his father Hamor, speaking in a way that concealed their intention. And they spoke in the place of their father to protect his honor and to accept all blame upon themselves for what they had intended to do to the ones who had defiled their sister Dana. We can't. Okay, so it says we can't do as you asked for of us. They said, giving our sisters an uncircumcised, giving our sister to an uncircumcised man would be a disgrace to us. The only way we can agree is if you will be like us and circumcise every male. Only then will we give you our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We will be able to live together with you, and both of us will become a single nation. But if you do not accept our terms and agree to be circumcised, we will take our father's daughter and go. That term seemed fair to Hamor and his son Shechem, since he desired Jacob's daughter so much, and he being the most respected person in his father's house, the young man lost no time in proceeding with the circumcision. And Hamor and his son Shechem then proceeded to the city gate and spoke there to the citizens of that city. These men are friendly toward us, they said. They live on our land and support themselves profitably from it. The land has more than ample room for them. We will marry their daughters and give them ours. But only if their terms are met will they consent to live with us and become one nation with us, just as they are just as they are circumcised. Every man among us must be first must be circumcised. Their livestock, their possessions, and their wealth will then become part of ours. So let us agree to their conditions and live with them. All the people who came out of the city gates agreed with Hamor and his son Shechem, and the males will pass through the city gate, allow themselves to be circumcised. Okay. On the third day, when the males of the city were in their greatest pain, two of Jacob's sons, Dinah's brother, Simeon and Levi, took up their swords, and they came into the city without arousing suspicion and killed every male. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem by the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left the city. They looted the possessions of those they had slain in the city and that had allowed their sister to be defiled. They took the sheep, cattle, donkeys, and whatever was in the city and in the field. And they also took the women and the children as captives. They took everything from the houses, plundering all the city's wealth. Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have made trouble for me in this land, giving me a bad reputation among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Uh, we are but a small number of men. They will band together and attack me, and my family will be destroyed." Then Simeon and Levi replied, "Should he have been allowed to treat our sister so wrongly, like a harlot?" God said to Jacob, "I want you to go to Bethel, remain there, and make an altar to me, the God who appeared to you as the and when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." Jacob gave these instructions to his family and everyone who was with him: "Rid yourselves of everything that instructs your soul in foreign ideals, the idols, and all the idolatrous objects that you have in your possession. Purify yourselves, change your clothes. We're setting out for Bethel. There I will make an altar to God who answered me in my time of trouble, and who has been with me on the journey that I have taken." They gave to Jacob all the adulterous objects that they had, even the rings in their ears. Jacob buried them in the plain of Moriah near Shechem, under the sacred timber tree where the Canaanites would worship. And so they began their journey. The terror of God was felt in all the cities around them, and the Canaanites did not pursue Jacob's son. Jacob and all the people with him came to Bethel, also called Luz, in the land of Canaan. He built an altar there, and he named the place Bethel's God, since this is a place where God was revealed to him when he was fleeing from his brother. And Rebekah sent the nurse of her youth, Deborah, to tell Jacob that it was safe to come home. Deborah died in Bethel, and she was buried in the valley of Bethel under the oak tree there. Jacob wept for Rebekah's loss, and he named the tree the Weeping Oak. After Jacob returned from Padan, God appeared unto him again and blessed him. God said unto him, "You are Jacob, but you will not." It says, "You are Jacob, but you will now also have the name Israel." It was here that the words of the angel with whom Jacob wrestled were fulfilled when God gave him the name Israel. So notice right here, it's the angel. It says, it was here that the words of the angel, it ain't Yahweh, with whom Jacob wrestled, were filled, and God gave him the name Israel. God said to him, "I am your God Almighty. You shall have many children, and from them shall come a nation and a community of nations. Kings will be among your descendants. Yet all shall be one people, and I will grant to you and to them who issue from you the land that I promised to Abraham and Jacob, to Abraham and Isaac. And when God had finished speaking to Jacob, he removed his appearance from Jacob. It was in this same location that Jacob had earlier set up a pillar to God. Here he now offered upon it a libation of wine to express his thanks to God for his great joys, and the libation of water to acknowledge that every ordinary moment of life comes from God. And then he poured oil upon the pillar to make permanent this a monument. It was this very same pillar that Jacob had named Bethel. They moved on from Bethel and were north of Ephrata, near Jerusalem, when Rachel began to give birth. Her labor was extremely difficult. When her labor was at its worst, the midwife said to her, "Don't be afraid. This is the son you asked for." She was dying, and as she breathed her last, she named the child Benoni, son of my sorrow. But his father called him Benjamin, son of my strength in my old age. Rachel died and was buried on the road to Ephrata, now known as Beth Limit. Jacob set up a monument on her grave. This is the monument that is on Rachel's grave to this very day. And Jacob traveled on toward Jerusalem, filled with the Spirit of God and holiness, and he reached an area beyond Medar Elder between Beth Lamech and Haran, and set up his tent. Jacob moved his bed to the tent. Jacob moved his bed to the tent of Belial, Rachel's handmaiden. And Reuben's emotions were stirred at this, and he entered her tent to take his father's bed and moved in unto Leah's tent. He did not try to hide his actions, and soon Jacob learned of what Reuben had done. And Jacob had 12 sons. Leah bore Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. And Rachel bore him Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel's handmaiden Bilhah bore him Dan, Naphtali, and Leah's handmaiden Zephaniah bore him Gad and Asher. These were all the sons born to Jacob at Padanaram. And Jacob had thus come to his father's Isaac in Mamre. See that right here? Mamre. So remember, that's a place, but it's named after the giant, same giant that Abraham was dealing with when the three angels came. So at Kira Abba. So Kira Abba is a giant too. That's Mamre's father. For the people that don't know, that's what Jerusalem was. It was named this name right here before they named it Jerusalem. Later known as Hebron, where Abraham and Jacob had resided, and Isaac, where Abraham and Isaac had resided. Isaac lived to be 180 years old. He had a full life and reached old age. He died amid his people. His son Esau and Jacob buried him there in Mamre, in the cave at Mizpah. These are the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom. Esau took wives from the daughters of Canaan. These were Ada, daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Humbala, I can't say that name, daughter of Anak, that's a giant, who was the daughter of Tishran of the Hivites. He also married Basemath, the daughter of Ishmael, and she was a sister to Nahum, the son of Ishmael. Adar bore Isaac's son Eliphaz, the father of Amalek. Basemath bore Reuel, also known as Yatro, father-in-law to Moses. And Hoblah bore Washer, Yo, and Korah, right? These are Esau's sons. Esau took his wives, his sons, and his daughters, and all the members of his household, his livestock, and all the passion or possessions that he had acquired in the land of Canaan, and he moved to an area that was distant from his brother Jacob. Esau felt that the land could not hold all the possessions, nor sustain all the household and the livestock, both of he and his brother. He chose to make the hill country of Seir rather than Haran as his permanent home. There Esau became the nation of Edom. These are the descendants of Esau, the ancestor of Edom, who settled in the hill country of Seir. Eliphaz was the son of Esau, born to his wife Ada. Reuel was the son of Esau, born to his wife Basmath. The son of Eliphaz was Timon, who lived in the city by his name in the land south of the sea of the Red Sea. Omar, a tribal chief among his people. Typho, the military leader of Edom, who traveled north and east of Canaan. Gadam and Kenaz, a tribal chief among his people. Timnah, the daughter of Seir the Hittite, became a concubine of Esau, son of Eliphaz, and she bore him a son, Amalek. All these are the descendants of Esau's wife, Ada. The son of Reuel, Nichat, Zerah, Shama, and Mizah. All these are the descendants of Esau's wife, Basmath. The sons of Esau's wife, Oholibah, the daughter of Anak, and granddaughter of Tishran, were Yashi, Yalama, Karat, it says, whose birth father was Eliphaz. These are the original tribal chiefs among children of Esau who ruled before there were kings. The sons of Esau, firstborn Eliphaz, were Chief Timon, Chief Omar, Chief Chispa, Chief Kenaz, Chief Kara, Chief Gacham, and Chief Amalek. These were the tribal chiefs in the land of Edom, descendants of Ada. So they're using chief right here, but if you go to the King James, they're using dukes, which take you right to Britain, Great Britain, where they at right now. Sons of Esau were Chief Nikat, Chief Zerah, Chief Shema, Chief Mizlah. These were the tribal chiefs in the land of Edom, all descendants of Basmath. The sons of Esau, wife Omar, were Chief Yasha, Chief Yalam, and Chief Kirah. These were tribal chiefs from Esau's wife, Ohabala, Ma, daughter of Anak. These then are the sons of Esau, and they are the tribal chiefs in the land of Edom. These are the children of Seir, the Horite, of the lineage of Chem, son of Nach, who were the original inhabitants of the land. Lathan, Shavo, Chezron, Dishan, Iter, and Dishan. These were the tribal chiefs of the Horites among the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The son of Lathan with Chari, who gave his name to the Horites, and Heman, Lathan's sister, was Timah. Shaval's sons were Avon, Manachat, Ebal, Shepho, and Onan. The children of Tishran were Ayah, Anak. Anak was one who discovered how to breed mules in the desert when he was tending donkeys for his father. The children of Anak were Dishan and Ohama. The sons of Dishan and Chidan and Eshan and Yaran and Karan. The sons of Israel were Balaam, Zaban, and Achan. The sons of Dishan were Uz and Abram. The tribal chiefs of the Horites were Chief Lotan, Chief Subal, Chief Tezron, Chief Anak, Chief Dishan, Chief Idzar, and the chief of Dishan. These were the Horites tribal chiefs in the land of Seir. These are the kings who ruled in the land of Edom before any anointed king reigned over the Israelites. And Bela, son of Bor, became king of Edom 20 years after Jacob entered Egypt. And his capital was named Dihala. And Bela died, and he was succeeded as king by Yobab, son of Zori, from the Edomite city of Basra, 20 miles south of the Dead Sea. Yobab died, and he was succeeded as king by Chosom, from the land of the Temanites, 50 miles south of the Dead Sea. And Chosom died and was succeeded by the king Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated Midian in the fields of Moab in time before the Israelites left Egypt. The name of his capital was Abed. Hadad died and was succeeded as king by Shomelah. Shomelah died and was succeeded by King Shaul from Shivah, which was on the Euphrates. And Shulal died and was succeeded as king by Baal-Chanan, son of Achabar. And Shaul died shortly before the Israelites left Egypt. Baal-Chanan, son of Achabar, died and was succeeded as king by Hadar. Name of his capital was Pul. His wife was named Mahatava, daughter of Midrad and grandson of Mazah. These are the tribes of Esau, each settled in his hereditary lands. This is how Esau was the ancestor of the Edomites. So I'm gonna stop right there. Any comments, questions about anything I read? Okay. Everybody good? Okay.
Yes,
Everybody
sir.
good? No questions?
No, just a comment on how the young lions, excuse me, agreed but disagreed and came back and killed all of the men, and how the Lord of Hosts had to save them by getting them away from the people that would come back for revenge.
Right. Yeah. So when, like I was saying, when you look at that, like you have so many people. If you just sit back and look at it, look at the actions of the Lord of Hosts, and look at the actions of Yahweh. You can see by their actions they men of color, just by their actions. So the same way with that. So why get in a big old ruckus and stunting and fronting when all you gotta do is use some tact, and they wiped all of them out and went on about their business. They acted as if it wasn't no big thing, but it was a big thing. But they
Right.
waited to the right moment, set them up. That's how you do a nut bucket. You ain't gotta get ignorant. You ain't gotta get ignorant with them. You already know what you're gonna do, and you said it and do it, and then you go on about your business. That's how they work.
Yes. Yes, sir. Because they thought that they defiled her, and he gonna say how much he loved her, and now he want to marry
Right,
her. You know, and that was supposed to take care of that.
right. Yeah, you didn't rape her and all that. Now you want to come back and they're supposed to accept that and then and marry you and accept you and let her marry you. It's
And then
crazy.
take all their women and switch the women. No.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that brings me back to something I kind of glazed over it back when I was playing that about uh how they was taking they had like 4 or 5 different things going on with West Africa. They were taking Israelites from West Africa all different directions. But notice what they said. They said that the women that was taken from the West Coast of Africa was taken to these different places as handmaidens, as concubines and wives, and I mean not wives, but maids in the house, up in the houses. So it goes back to like I was saying before. All these slave movies, you notice it was a certain time of the year that the master, slave master of the house or the plantation, he went on a long trip to meet these ships that was coming in, because he knew what was coming in. He knew these Israelite women was coming in. They would travel from all the way across America to get to New Orleans or to South Carolina, because they already had got word on a certain ship that was coming and what was on it, and they already knew the appearance of those women. So they wanted us to think they had these big old holes in their ears and you know, plates in their lips and all this bull crap. But that's not what the case was. Those are Africans, Canaanites. But they knew what the Hebrew Israelite woman looked like. And they were packing up all their stuff and go get them you know, a bunch. And they, like I said,
yes, sir.
they ain't want them in the field. They want them in the household. That's where the drummer came with the wife, because he didn't want them in the field. He wanted them in the house where he was at. Right.
Shalom, because those Europeans, when they saw the women that were shapely and more attractive than their women, then they wanted to get them. I forget the name of the one lady, and I looked at the document, and I'll get it back to group, but how they just put her through all of this turmoil, and they would want to touch on her, and the women, even the ladies, would want to touch on her because of her figure, and they used her like she was an animal, and just carried her all across the European country, and made her like a slave, and put a chain around her neck and everything, and then they started experimenting on her and taking tissue from her. The scientists to wonder why this type of woman could be shaped like this and their women weren't. You know, they just start to explore her body and stuff, and then she later on died. But yeah, they were so intrigued, although they would call, you know, make you sound like you dehumanized, but they so intrigued with it and want to, you know, take advantage of the Hebrew women.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So anybody else got anything they want to share before we go? You want to talk about? Okay. So with that being said, I'll see everybody on Tuesday night for our advanced Bible study. With that being said, I want to say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. See everybody Tuesday.
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.